Welcome to the Lounge Lizards podcast. It's so good to have you here. It's a leisure and lifestyle podcast founded on our love of premium cigars, as well as whiskey, travel, food, work, and whatever else we feel like getting into. My name is Gizmo. Tonight I'm joined by Rooster, Senator, Pagoda, and Bam Bam. And our plan is to smoke a cigar, drink some wine, talk about life, and of course, have some laughs. So take this as your 119th official invitation to join us and become a card-carrying lounge lizard. And to meet us here once a week. We're going to smoke a Cuban cigar tonight, share our thoughts on it, and give you our formal lizard rating. We continue with part 2 of our Cuba trip recap this week, including our first ever visit to Viñales in the province of Pinar del Rio, Cuba's home for premium tobacco farms. We discuss the tobacco growing process, our impressions of Cuba's countryside, and we preview the upcoming Habanos Festival, all among a variety of other things for the next 90 minutes. So sit back, get your favorite drink, light up a cigar, and enjoy as we pair Campo Viejo Tempranillo with the Vegas Robaina Famosos. A Corona Extra tonight on the pod from Cuba. It's called the Vegas Robaina Famosos. It's a 48 ring gauge cigar by 5 inches long. And boys, as everybody knows who listens to this podcast regularly, Vegas Robaina is very much one of our favorites.
It's a coveted marca.
And this is only the third that we've done on the podcast.
True.
Actually, certainly number one, because they don't have many in regular production anymore.
Yeah.
And 2, the ones that aren't in production, like our beloved Classico, is very, very hard to find.
You know, honestly, this marca doesn't come to mind for me very often. It just doesn't.
There's only 2 Vitolas.
Yeah, there's only 2 in regular production.
Unicos and the
and this Famosa.
Famosa.
This is a beautiful cigar.
I love the construction, just on the look of it, with the same band they've been using forever, the gold and brown with the big R in the middle.
The wrapper is a beautiful, mild brown. It's exquisite.
Yeah, it's the invisible seams, really, really nice.
Bit toothy, but still nice.
I'm excited to try this tonight.
I think the wrapper is beautiful.
Yeah.
It is.
It's not toothy to me. This looks like a bar of milk chocolate.
Yeah.
Got some veins here.
A little Hershey
nice.
bar.
a little bit. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful cigar.
All right, boys, let's cut this thing. See, we're getting on the cold draw on the wrapper. We've done a few other Hermosos number 4s on the podcast. It's a popular Vitola for Habanos. I think that this kind of size of cigar is very much in favor right now worldwide. A lot of value for it. And certainly as people are looking to spend, trying to get bang for the buck, you know, as far as the time spent smoking, this should be about an hour-ish.
A little
experience.
tight in the draw for me, yeah.
Really?
Just a bit. Enough.
Dr. Bam performing a little surgery.
A little surgery over there. I have another one, Bam, if you need it.
No, I'm going to stick to this. It's okay.
Did you do a V cut?
No, I should have.
Well,
No.
you're the only one with the V cut.
Well,
V cutter.
I'm taking my lead from Danilo.
Yeah.
I like his advice.
Yeah.
So, boys, what are you getting on the cold draw?
Oh, wow.
Getting some cedar.
cocoa.
A little cocoa.
I'm getting light cocoa and fruit.
Mm-hmm.
I get all of that, and this is going to sound weird, but cream.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever, on a cigar on the cold draw, got cream. It's a really soft, creamy kind of...
It's like a milky dairy type of thing,
Yeah.
but very smooth. It's nice.
Even a little floral.
Mm-hmm.
Slight.
I don't need to light this. This is great just on the cold draw.
Senator's going to smoke that for 8 hours.
That's right.
All right,
Before
boys,
he
let's
lights
light
it.
this thing. The Vegas Robaina Famosos. Again, it's a Corona Extra. The factory name is a Hermosos number 4. It's a 48 ring gauge cigar by 5 inches long. And it's one of 2 in current production for Vegas Robaina. And as we said, we're hoping that they start bringing back Vegas Robaina as a marca like they have some of the others, like Rafael Gonzalez.
Yeah, they've resurrected a few markers,
There's
right?
been a lot of resurrection, and I'm hoping that this one's next. We shall see.
I wonder if Robaina is the only farm that produces tobacco and also is a brand.
I think it is, as
Right.
far as Habanos goes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, he was notorious for, not notorious, he was celebrated as one of the greatest farmers in
It
Cuban
was.
tobacco history.
Don
ever.
Alejandro.
Don Alejandro Robaina.
This is delicious off the light.
The light is amazing.
I mean, wow.
And mine has a slight bit of resistance, so I'm actually hoping that I'm able to smoke this a little slower
Mine does too.
and get like a longer experience out of what is only a
Wow,
5-inch cigar.
It's really good on the light.
Great
Same
preview
here.
right now.
Really good.
What year is this?
So this is the box code on this is ESM July 22.
Okay.
So coming up on 2 years.
All right.
So it's about a little over a year and a half right now.
And what did this cost?
So these cigars were about $18, $20, I believe.
Okay.
At the time, I think now they might be a little more.
I'm sure.
But at the time that I purchased them, I think they were 18 or 20.
Smoking great.
What kind of notes are you guys getting on the light?
For me, it's very dessert-like. I get like cocoa and like some kind of shortbread or like a biscuity note.
I feel like it's graham cracker for me.
Could be.
Yeah.
I thought in the first light I got like a very milky, chocolatey, kind of a creamy.
All excellent notes, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
I feel like on the retro
Off to
hail,
a great
I'm
start.
getting a little bit of a mint type of finish through the nose. Just a little bit of a mint.
Little
Which
mint,
is
mint
unique.
chocolate chip.
Mint chocolate chip. So these cigars come in dress boxes of 25 cigars. They were originally released in 1997. They used to come in cardboard packs of 5 and cardboard packs of 3, discontinued in 2009 and around 2006, respectively. And like I said, it shares size with a lot of other Hermosos number 4s in the Habanos catalog. We've done a bunch of them. I'll go through some of them. We'll talk about the ratings later. The El Rey del Mundo Schwa Supreme, of course. The H. Upman Connoisseur 1. The Romeo y Julieta Exhibition number 4. We have not done that one. The St. Louis Rey Regios we did. The Por Laranaga Picadores, which I believe is a Habanos specialist release. And then finally, the new one, the newest Hermosos number 4 in regular production we did recently was the Rafael Gonzalez Coronas de Lonsdale, is the same exact size as this. So it's almost, aside maybe from Partagas, I think, and Cohiba potentially, this is almost every brand has a Hermosos number 4 in the Habanos catalog. It's
That's
a
cool.
very, very popular size.
Yeah.
The ring gauge is a little smaller than a Robusto.
It is.
But
Yeah.
slightly longer.
right.
Am I right?
Great Vitola.
I think the Robusto is 5 by 50. So this is about the same
This is
length as
48.
48 by 5. So it's a little bit smaller, but about the same length than a classic Habanos Robusto.
It's velvety smooth on the retro hail, I have to say. Really quite nice.
Yeah, this is a really elegant cigar for its size. Like normally, I don't know if I would use the word elegant for a cigar, a Hermosos number 4, really.
Mhm.
But this feels really nice in the hand.
It
and
looks great.
the smoke is just
Yeah.
very complex. And I like it.
I think it's also just really elegant in flavor. I mean, if you would have told me this had 4 or 5 years of age, I would have believed it just because of how creamy the delivery of the flavor is, which I feel like only typically comes with a decent
Older
amount
cigar.
of age. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you take a cold draw. The flavor that you get out of the cold draw is totally different when you light it. And this kind of has very similar to the cold draw.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you get,
This
you
is
get-
true.
You get cream and you get milk chocolate, and that's kind of coming through right now.
That's very true. You mentioned the Schwa Supreme. For me, that's got a bigger kick as far as the notes are concerned, and it's right there, and it stays with you consistently. This one is more subtle. There's subtlety to this, and I think there's elegance in that.
I agree. I think this is, what would you guys say the flavor profile is? Would you say mild, medium? I don't think this is really getting into medium territory for me, but not in a bad way.
I think it's mild, touching medium.
Yeah. It's not
Yeah.
mild. It's not mild, but it's more towards medium.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And on the finish, that graham cracker for me is really strong. It's quite beautiful.
So like I said, this is the third Vegas Robaina cigar we've done on the pod. We did the Unicos, which is the classic Pyramidi. We did that in the Battle of the Pyramids quite some time ago. And the famous, as far as our broadcast goes, the Classico, which was discontinued in 2012. We did about a year and a half ago on a Christmas episode or a New Year's Eve episode. So Vegas Robaina's story is not very long. Don Alejandro Robaina was a very famous Cuban tobacco farmer, had a long running family farm that's still there in Pinar del Rio in the Vuelta Abajo region of Cuba. And he gained fame, like I said, as the best tobacco farmer in Cuba, thanks to his high yield of, as they call it, export grade wrapper leaves. In most years, he was able to accomplish 2 to 3 times that of his nearest competitor, which was huge. And I think he was very he had a lot of ingenuity as far as eliminating bugs
Mhm.
and making sure the crop was protected from you know outside forces that his competitors were unable to protect from. So that's how he was able to be so successful with his yield. In the 1990s, he became an ambassador for the Cuban cigar industry, traveled the world, and this brand, named for his farm and him, was launched in 1997. It's classified in Habanos' other category of portfolio brands, and of course, gets a lot of regional releases, which I've actually never had a Robaina regional,
Mm.
but I know some folks who have and always say that they're pretty good.
That's good to hear because there aren't many good regionals.
Yeah, that's something that we haven't celebrated on this podcast for
Mhm.
sure. This is interesting. The mother factory of the brand is actually based in Pinar del Rio. It's not one of the mother factories in Havana. It's the Francisco Donatian factory out west. So that's pretty cool. That's the first time that I've ever seen a mother factory listed as
So far outside of Havana.
outside of Havana.
Yeah.
So very appropriate tonight, boys, that not only are we talking about a cigar that its mother factory is located in Pinar del Rio, and also that we're talking about one of the most famous farmers of all time in Cuban tobacco. Very, very appropriate that tonight we are recapping our trip to Pinar del Rio and Viñales when we were in Havana a few weeks ago. Very, very exciting. So where do you want to start, boys? Do you want to start with the roads?
Yeah, let's recount our luxurious ride over to Pinar del Rio.
Well, I mean, I wish we had gone to this farm
Yeah, I wish we could have. Yeah.
if we would have found it.
Yeah. Next time. Always
Next time.
always something to do next time. Well, we were very fortunate. We rented a 15-passenger van, which ended up being a blessing because
That was kind of small. We really Gizmo
Yeah.
really wanted the big bus.
I did want the big bus.
Yeah, you let us down a little bit on that
I'm
one.
sorry
but
about that. I'm sorry about that. But thank God that we had the bus because I know some folks who've gone out there in the 52 Chevys and did the 2.5 ride out there. And I don't know how they survived because
How would the car survive?
the roads in Havana, the roads leading out of Havana to Pinar del Rio for 2.5, 3 hours
With no suspension.
with no suspension they are just absolutely atrocious. And it's almost like they paved it once in the 50s and have not paved it or updated it since. It's crazy. What was your experience in the van, Senator?
I mean, it feels like you're at an amusement park on a roller coaster. I mean, the entire way, you're literally just like flying up off the seat every 2 minutes. I was trying to sleep when we were going out there. It was like impossible.
I'm
don't
glad
know
I
how
was
they do it.
sober because it was an easy trip for me.
It would have been bad if you had some drinks and you weren't feeling great. It would have been a rough trip.
Yeah. And if you're someone who gets car sick, good luck making it out there.
So on the way out, we hit a tourist rest stop, which I guess every vehicle or bus with a tourist pulls into. I guess it was about an hour and a half outside Havana
Probably.
or so. And we
I just
got off
found it
there.
funny because you just think of like, I don't know, in the States when you're driving to random far distances, there's like a welcome or a visitor center or something like that. I just found it amusing that like you're on this road that's in total disrepair and then you pull up and there's like actually this pretty nicely done like visitor center. There was a gift shop that had things you don't even find in Havana, like hand soap and lotion and all this crap for sale. I was shocked. They had a bar, there was food. It was a pretty nice setup.
Nice.
Yeah, it was definitely the nicest kind of quick stop that we had seen anywhere in Cuba, even in Havana.
Was it crowded at that stop?
Not too crowded, but
No.
not dead. There were
Yeah, there
definitely
were-
people.
I mean, when we pulled in, there were probably 5 or 10 buses and as well
that's
as
a
other
lot.
taxis and stuff
That's a
there.
lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's definitely that's like the tourist trap.
It's
if
a
you wanna use
well-traveled
that
area,
word.
let's say. Yeah.
I mean, that honestly was nicer than anything on the New Jersey Turnpike if you were to go to a rest stop. Truly.
What about the John Bon Jovi rest station
Correct.
What's in there? A Cinnabon? I mean, come on.
and a Burger King?
I was a bit disappointed with the coffee there, though.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
really?
It wasn't good.
They
Did
did
they-
have a cappuccino machine there.
Yeah.
Did they have ropa vieja at the rest stop?
I know. We didn't eat.
I think they made the coffee out of powdered milk.
I got a fresh coconut there. It was good.
Did you?
Did you really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Look
Yeah.
at you.
Wow.
Some coconut water.
Yeah,
He did not share, by the way.
I'm
I
sure you
think-
didn't.
I think Senator was the only one who was rehydrating that day.
Smart, very smart.
So we continued on our journey about another hour and a half, I would say, because we headed first to Hector Luis Prieto's farm, which is about 40 minutes further than downtown Viñales and where a lot of the farms are, to his farm, which is called Quemado de Rubi. And I would say is the premier destination for tourists coming in who want to have a really nice experience at a farm, really get a great tour, see everything, and of course have some drinks and some food. So that was where we went first. And I think that our impression, certainly I was surprised how well set up that farm was for visitors.
Yeah, they have done it a few times.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It seems like every single tourist, if you're on a tour, they take you there.
Right.
It's well set up to accommodate a bunch of tourists at the same time.
Nice.
And it's a nice, well done. I mean, it was a nice spot.
It felt very welcoming. There was light music going on. It was breezy. You could see the tobacco farms. It was a nice little, setup.
So we drove down a long dirt road, and I had no expectations of what was coming. But as soon as you park, immediately there's almost like a visitor center. There's a open air, like Pagoda is saying, a covered open air bar restaurant type setup right off of their humidor. And you get to come in and say hello to everybody and meet everybody. And then we were able to take a tour, and that's where it started. Take a tour of the process at his farm, understand why he now, I would argue, is probably the successor to Don Alejandro Robaina, whose cigar we're smoking tonight in his name, as the premier tobacco farmer in Pinar del Rio. Certainly famous, apparently, for the quality of the leaf that comes from his farm. He has found ways very similar to Robaina to grow really, really excellent tobacco that is celebrated not only by the industry, but by Habanos itself. He is very much, I would say, one of their favorites.
He's the 4th generation farmer.
Hmm.
So the farm has been there for quite some time.
Not to go off topic. When was the last storm that went through that area? How long ago? So was that 2 years ago?
It was about a year and a half, I think, or last year. Yeah. And he
Any remnants of that you saw?
We didn't see it at his farm. We certainly saw it as we were driving out.
Okay.
There was quite a bit of damage as we were driving from Viñales, kind of the downtown touristy area, out to his farm, another 40 minutes. I mean, we were driving, we saw structures that were just walls standing, roofs completely gone. Some of these homes that people live in, it's incredible that they're able to sustain a family life in some of these homes. Like, they definitely were hit very, very hard, but it seems like Hector Luis at Quemado de Rubi has been able to recover quite well, I would say.
I think the Robaina farm was pretty badly hit.
We heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Hector Luis, the one thing that, before we even start talking about the tour we went on, he told us that he started farming when he was 37 years old. It wasn't when he was 18 or 16 or 12. He came into this business at 37 years old.
And
which
how
I
old do
found
you think he is now?
fascinating. I think he's in his late 50s.
That's not a long time
No.
to do that.
Rooster, you could still be a tobacco farmer.
Correct.
It's not too late.
Yeah, there's still hope for me. I would like that.
I could see it.
I would like
I
that.
could see it.
I could live there.
With your shorts on, your hat,
Yeah. Who needs Goshen when you have Pinar del Rio?
cigars in your lapel.
It is Guayabera.
Guayabera, correct.
And there's cowboy boots. Please.
Oh, yeah.
It is funny. So that, there's an illustration of Hector Luis that's kind of famous. It's on the sign as you're pulling into the property. It's on all over the internet, is this picture of this guy with this specific hat on and the way he dresses and always has a big fat cigar in his mouth. And I'll tell you, he was exactly as I expected. Like, when you saw him, it's like, that's Hector Luis, because as he came up on us, he looked identical to every picture I've ever seen of the guy.
Wow.
Identical.
Wow.
So then we met our tour guide, who actually is a roller at his farm, and started the process of the tour, even, beginning with the seedlings.
Hey, just one more comment. The cigar he was smoking was probably a double Gordo or something. It was like huge.
It was like an 80 ringgit.
And he mangled that thing. I mean, he was chewing all over it. I couldn't believe just
was-
watching.
Probably his lunch.
So we started the tour right off of the visitor area, the place where you sit and have drinks and whatnot, with like a little pod, I guess you would say. It was kind of a pod set up with seedlings in it, and they started the process there. Um, any takeaways from from the beginning of the tour there and what we learned about the seedlings?
I mean, I just thought it was cool. They showed the plant that has these little the balls that have the seeds inside. And I remember he was, I guess, maybe passing some of the seeds to other people. I mean, it's as fine as sand. The seeds. I would have expected the seeds to be, I don't know,
Hardier?
like
Yeah.
sesame seeds or just something more sizable. I mean, literally, it was just like sand in someone's hand that you were watching, and then they put that into that little pot that you were talking about to start to sprout the plant.
So they put it in these little pods for 45 days, and that's where they start.
That's where they germinate.
And
Yep.
that's where they germinate, and that's where they start to grow. And after 45 days, they're ready to be planted in the tobacco fields. But I like Senator, I was very surprised. I think sand is a perfect example how fine the seeds are. I would have expected that they were, like you said, even I was expecting maybe closer to like sesame seeds, like a little bit bigger. But like you said, they were very, very tiny, like the point of a needle.
Really?
Very, very small.
Wow.
So then we continued on the tour, and we went into the actual growing area where the plants were growing, and we were able to
Right.
see a lot of stuff there.
So the first farm that we went to was where they were growing the shade grown wrapper. All the wrapper is grown under shade.
Mhm.
It was, I don't know how big of an area would you say? Maybe quarter of an acre, like that particular
Yeah, that specific area that we were in. Yeah.
that was there.
And that entire area was covered with linen?
It was
Yeah.
all covered.
Really?
Not only the top, even the sides were covered.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I would say the tobacco plant was roughly about 6 feet.
Yeah,
Yep.
6 feet. Yeah,
About
a bit
6
taller than
feet.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Beautiful, beautiful looking plant.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, massive leaves. And when they start picking the leaves, it's from the bottom up.
Interesting.
And on the lower part of the plant, I think those are the leaves that are lighter in color. And as you go higher up, they get a little bit darker in
Cool.
color.
And also just smaller. They were saying that like the leaves at the bottom, they start picking to actually roll cigarettes. And the larger leaves they let obviously keep growing that they're going to use for cigars.
It's
That-
amazing how fast the plant grows from that little seedling we were talking about.
Mhm.
In 90 days, it almost grows like a weed. Like in 90 days, it went from that seedling, where they took it out of that pot after 45 days, put it in the ground after 90 days. It was almost 6 feet tall. It was pretty
Amazing.
amazing how fast it
and it
grows.
was beautiful. I think I was really impressed by looking at the tobacco plants. They were green, and it was just beautiful the way it was set up. I was expecting it to be like I've been to certain farms where everything's just feels very crowded and somewhat helter-skelterish.
I was surprised by the size of the leaf.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, it must be at least like maybe 4 times the size of my hand.
Yeah.
Big leaf.
You have small
Beautiful.
hands.
The other thing I thought was amazing too was we learned that the protection from the sun is not only for protecting from the sun, it's also for protecting from heavy rain, because too much water or too little water can very adversely affect the growing of the plant. So that also protects too much water from coming in, because
Sure.
they want to be very, very specific about how much water
Sure.
the plant gets.
Also wind, I guess. I mean, it protects them
Probably.
from all the elements.
And
What
it,
was-
and it traps the heat, right? I think
It
it's-
does. Yeah, it does trap the heat. Yeah,
A question
you're
about
right.
the soil. What color was it? Dark, lighter?
It was dark. It was
Yeah?
dark brown.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like it was very much what like you'd see in any sort of garden.
Mhm.
It was that kind of color. It was a darker brown.
Agree. Nothing distinct.
Okay.
very well organized there. Yeah.
Mm.
I think we did ask him like how big of an area it is, and I forget what he said. How many hectares?
They have a lot.
They
I
have-
think it's like 30. I think they have like a lot of land there.
Right.
Hector Luce
right.
has quite a bit. Yeah, they grow a lot of tobacco there. So as they start picking the plant, starting at 90 days, they move those into the
barn.
barn, the Casa del Tabaco.
Well, they bunch the leaves. They take, I think, 5 or 6 leaves, and they bunch them, and then they hang them upside down on like a long stick. And I mean, obviously, there wasn't much there because it's not harvest season yet. And I assume when the harvest begins, I mean, that whole room is just full. Can you imagine that smell?
Oh, it must be
Oh
amazing.
yeah, it
in
must
there.
be incredible.
Intoxicating.
I mean, he was saying that stick that they hang them on, that they dry the wrappers for 50 days typically on that stick before they bunch and then, ship it out.
The other thing was interesting too, is he said that only women are chosen to bunch the leaves onto the needle, I guess, the rope that holds it onto that stick. No men do that. It's only women.
So here's a question. So once they thread the needle with the leaves, does it stay on there for a certain amount of time? And do they transfer it to a vessel of some kind after?
I think about 50 days.
50, you said that 50 days. Okay.
And then they keep turning it over as they're picking more off the plant.
I see.
After, a certain amount of time,
right.
If they're feeling good about what's coming up on the bottom of the plant, they keep picking. That process keeps continuing. And then they move the stuff that's, ready to go after 50 days into the, fermentation area.
I think they move them into bigger bundles.
Okay, together.
Like, first it's 5 leaves, and then it goes into a bigger bundle, then even a bigger bundle.
Yeah. So he was saying that the bundles are typically, it's 50 leaves, which is, he said, about the equivalent of 2 plants, and that bundle they called a gavilla. Then he said they'll take 4 gavillas, and that's called a manojos. And they'll bundle those manojos into 40 manojos.
Wow.
And that's like, do you remember there was like those like big crate looking things?
Yeah.
Right.
That was, I think, the like 40 manojos all bundled into one of those crates.
Right.
Wow.
And I think they spray water on them to keep them moist, and they cover them up with some kind of a jute or some kind of.
And you'd have to think with all that mass, there's weight, there's heat that develops in there, and they
That's
ferment.
the whole fermentation process.
Right.
Yeah.
The one thing I wasn't clear about is, do they take the leaves and they put them all the way on top? Because I remember there were some towards the ceiling of the barn.
I think that's just a space-saving measure.
All right.
They're constantly leveling them up just to keep making space for more leaves coming in, and try to, start to cure as much tobacco at the same time as is possible.
And I'm sure, we just saw one barn. They have multiple drying barns, maybe, a couple of barns for wrapper leaves and a bunch of other barns for regular tobacco.
And in that barn, who was watching the whole process? That Castro painting they had in there. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
It was actually a pretty cool photo,
was
I
pretty
have
cool,
to say.
yeah.
It was like this painting of Castro with like clouds of smoke billowing out of his mouth. And he's just sitting there like kind of like a little smirk, and it's just right in the center of the room as these women are all doing their work.
Probably smoking a Fundadores.
The one thing I read too is that the barns were historically constructed from palm wood, which I guess is readily available in Cuba, with roofs of thatched palm fronds. And now they're made of corrugated iron sheets and sawn lumber. I don't know what sawn lumber means.
It's just dimensional lumber.
Got it.
Yeah. 2x4.
This is why, Bam, this is why we have you here.
Correct.
The only reason.
Okay, guys. Good night.
Bam, we'll text you.
Gotcha.
The other cool thing is that we saw this when we were walking in, is they have massive doors and massive windows, which obviously they use to regulate temperature in those barns. So throughout the day, obviously as it gets hotter during the day, I'm sure they're opening that to keep it cooler, and then at night they're closing it to keep it a little bit more regulated, so that the tobacco can cure evenly.
You want that air
throughout the
movement.
process.
Yeah.
Throughout
It's
the
also
process.
kept very dark.
Do they have fans blowing?
We didn't see any fans, and I
Okay.
think it's just air movement through
Got
massive doors and windows. I mean, I must say the temperature was a little bit cooler in that area compared to Havana.
It definitely
Agree.
was.
Well, it's also the
maybe
time of year.
due to the altitude.
Yeah.
Or,
Oh, that too. Yeah.
And you're not on the water, right? I mean, I have to imagine the humidity with the water there is affecting our perception of temperature versus being out in Pinar
I don't know
del
if you
Rio.
guys noticed, like when we were sitting down to eat, right behind there was like a river,
Mm-hmm.
and there were a bunch of houses in it. I guess they use that for irrigation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't waste anything.
No.
Use all the natural resources.
Well, I did think it was funny. The one thing that they clearly did not know at that farm, when we were under like the cheesecloth where they were growing all the wrapper leaves, someone had asked what happens as far as like fertilizing the tobacco plant, and if the veins, when they strip the vein from the leaf, if they, use that as fertilizer. And the guy's like, oh, no, we just throw all of that out. We know that's not the case.
That is not true.
Not
When
at
we've
all.
been on any factory tour, those
Correct.
veins that they strip out of those leaves, they send back out to the farms
Yeah.
that are used for fertilizer, which makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
Right. They also use compost in the soil when
Yeah.
they plant the seed.
If I remember correctly, they'll take the stems and they'll soak them in
Soak them
water,
in water and use
and
the
they
water.
use that as a to keep insects away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's a high concentration of ammonia.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then after the process, like we just talked about in the barns, some of the wrapper is moved to climate-controlled drying chambers known as calfrisas. So after the 50 days that they're in the barns, and this is not everything, some are moved for 25 days for an additional curing process in calfrisas, which is a more precisely controlled process and results in higher percentage of top quality wrappers compared to the traditional air curing that we were able to see in the barns. So what I was amazed by, and I guess it was a contrary to the perception I've seen on the internet or heard from other folks who visited these tobacco farms, is quite honestly how simple the process seems as a layperson.
Mm.
I know it's very labor intensive. I know there's a lot of diligent science and effort and experience involved, but from seedling to what we learned about the curing process in the barns, it wasn't very complicated. I was surprised that I was able to kind of understand it very quickly and kind of got a grasp for it.
Yeah.
It just seems that throughout the many generations, many hundreds of years they've been doing this, they've been able to really simplify it
Yeah. And
just-
systematize for themselves.
and just do it well.
I agree. That was my takeaway, and just how fast the process is. I
Yeah.
mean, the fact that like the plant grows to, I mean, a 6 foot tall, mature plant in 90 days, I would not have expected. And I was also surprised to learn that after that initial yield, it's not the case that like, they're picking the leaves and then letting new ones form. They just remove the plant and they start the whole process all over again.
Yeah.
I mean, they said that they can obviously wait for an additional yield, but their experience is that that first yield is the best one and the ones after it don't really compare. So I was just shocked how like rinse and repeat and how quickly and automated this process almost becomes.
I mean, I'm sure like different farms are doing little different things. Maybe at this
Maybe.
particular farm, they were doing this. I mean, some farms do grow some cigarette tobacco. They might be growing some other vegetables, maybe, which is
Interesting.
supposed to be very good for the soil.
It goes to, I guess that goes to show for me, the most complicated part of what we're smoking tonight is in the blend. So if it's fairly straightforward in growing the tobacco and fermenting the tobacco, but it's the art is in the blend that creates something exquisite.
And I think, and we discussed this with Danilo, and 2 weeks from now, for the listener, we're going to have our interview with Danilo Rodriguez, the production manager of Cohiba and El Neguito. And we talked extensively about the choosing of tobacco, when they go to these storage facilities. So the tobacco leaves a farm like Hector Luis. It's, packed up in tercias, it's called, which are square packages wrapped in yaguas, which is, I guess, like a bark, again, coming from the royal palm plant. And then it's moved to Tabacuba storage facilities for additional fermentation and sorting. And that's where we talked to Danilo on that interview we have
Yeah.
coming out in 2 weeks about his process of selecting that tobacco and going there and choosing what they want to use for wrapper, filler, binder for the various cigars they're manufacturing at any given time. That, like you said, Bam, that seems to me, obviously, the execution on Hector Luis's part at a farm like that is top notch and very important.
And
but like
critical
you
still,
said,
sure.
critical. But for making a great cigar,
That's the art.
It comes down to the choice of tobacco and then, like
Yeah.
you said, the blend.
I wonder if
The recipe.
Tabacuba keeps the farms separated, or does it all just go into one massive or multiple barns?
Well,
Or can you go in, like, can Danilo like go in and say, well, this is from Alejandro's farm, or this is,
I may have heard
ABC farm.
incorrectly, but when we were interviewing Danilo, aren't there two large fermenting entities in Cuba that they all get sent to and they stay there?
Yeah, the storage facilities, I think, just have everything there.
Yeah.
I think it's sorted by type of wrap, size of wrapper, color,
Right.
et cetera. And I think, like you said, I don't think that they're discerning as far as which farm it comes from. They're just trying to choose the best tobacco that's in front of their face. I don't think that he's able to say, I want X, Y, or Z. I think it's just he chooses what's available to him.
So Robaina can't say that I want to use my own tobacco for my cigars.
Well, he can, and we saw that with Hector Luis. Hector Luis is able
Well,
to.
that's only within the farm, but I'm saying when
Right.
they're actually getting rolled in the
Oh, no,
factories,
no.
they can't say that I want to use my own tobacco.
Yeah, I mean, the strange thing though is, I mean, then how how do we know Hector Luis's tobacco is better than the next person's?
You don't.
If it's all just in one
You don't.
facility
I think it
together.
just comes down to more to the blending decision, not so much as the tobacco. I mean,
But
tobacco
that
is
has nothing to do
important.
with Hector Luis.
It
This
has
guy
nothing-
has this reputation.
That's
How did
correct.
he get the reputation is my
Correct.
point.
Correct.
I think for Hector Luis, I think it's the yield coming off that farm. I'm
Yeah.
sure Tabacuba is there every day, monitoring the process, monitoring what's coming out of there. And I'm sure that he's just figured out a process that works for his farm that yields what Tabacuba and Habanos view as some of the best tobacco coming out of there. And maybe he just gives them more product.
But at the end of the day, they all go to a central fermenting location.
Yep.
And you can't discern product from one farm to another
Exactly right.
that we know of anyway.
That's my understanding.
We don't, there's maybe something we don't know.
I don't know. What I really liked was after the tour, where he picked up a dry leaf, the wrapper leaf, and he ran his finger through it, and it was so leathery, and
Very pliable.
it was very stretchy and leathery, and it was you got a good feel for the wrapper.
That's cool.
When we were talking to him about, where all this tobacco goes and how much of it they send to Tabacuba versus actually keep on the farm, I think he had said 90% of it gets shipped out and 10% of it they actually keep and then roll their own cigars with there.
For themselves?
Yeah, that then they can sell.
Really?
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
that was a COVID measure that Tabacuba introduced to help these farmers during COVID and, with financial struggles, is they started to allow the farms to roll their own cigars and sell them to tourists so that they could, make some extra money,
It makes sense.
I guess, for the farm. So that's, as soon as we were done with the tour, immediately we were kind of shuttled over to the area where they rolled. Our tour guide rolled a cigar for us. I think he gave it to Pagoda or Senator. And then we were able to go in the humidor that they have and
Really?
purchase some cigars. Yeah.
Cool.
It was funny. It was like this little shed with like a portable air conditioning unit, basically, like pumping AC in. Like as soon as you come in, they're like, close the door, close the door. It's like, keep the air conditioning in. And there were all these little drawers that had different cigars in them. It was pretty cool. They actually also, one of the walls was just covered with photos of celebrities that had actually been there.
Really? Anyone notable?
Yeah, there was
Sylvester
like
Stallone.
Stallone.
Get out of town.
The president of Cuba,
Well,
Was
I
there?
would hope so.
of
Yeah.
course.
And they had 3 sizes of cigars. They had a kind of like just like the Bajiques, like 52, a 54, and a 56.
And that's it.
Those 3 sizes.
Okay.
Oh, here's another one. Steven Seagal.
Oh, Steven Seagal,
Damn.
action star.
Correct.
Oh, 50 Cent. I'm staring at a photo of him and Hector Luis.
Oh, boy.
He's worth a quarter now.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Do you know who I think this is? No, never mind. There's a guy who looks just like Samuel L. Jackson, but it's not him. That would have been very cool.
Barack Obama.
So the other thing in the humidor that was cool that is worth mentioning is that Hector Luis was actually named Habanos Man of the Year a few years ago. I guess because, he produces such great tobacco and, provides a lot of product for Tabacuba and Habanos. At the Habanos Gala dinner, they honored Hector Luis Prieto with the Habanos Man of the Year, which is only given to one person a year. So
Wow.
that was, I
That's a
thought
big
that was
deal.
pretty cool. So the actual trophy was in the humidor on display for us. So
Fantastic.
There is an agency that kind of monitors production of seed and quality of seed and seed control.
the Tobacco Research
the Tobacco
Institute.
Research Institute.
Yep.
So they're heavily involved in the whole farming, so
And I think they're also kind of like Coca-Cola with the secret recipe.
Yeah.
The Tobacco Research Institute are the keepers of the blends and the marcas. And
Is that right?
Yeah. So when it comes to blending, it actually is processed through the Tobacco Research Institute,
Wow.
which I think is probably why in previous episodes when we've talked about, and I think we talked about this with Danilo in the upcoming interview, is that inside Cuba, we know who rollers are. We don't know who blenders are. Outside of Cuba,
Right.
we know who blenders are and the people who are making the blending decisions, and there's no celebration of the people actually rolling the cigars. And I think that inside Cuba, this is a big reason why, is I think this is kind of a closely held group of people at the Tobacco Research Institute who are making blending decisions and monitoring blends and making sure things are consistent to keep things in line for Tabacuba and for Habanos.
All the marcas.
Exactly.
So you think they keep track of the recipes, essentially?
I think they have the secret sauce.
Ah, It's a good theory.
Yeah, and they want to keep them secret.
Of
I mean,
course.
that's the-
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about this in the Daniil interview.
Makes
but,
sense.
these are the people that wield the most power, really. Like, if we knew who they were, we'd all try to get them out of Cuba, and they'd be, blending for, New World brands, right? Like, that's why they keep them quiet.
I'd buy them a house here.
But truly, think about it. I
It's
mean,
true.
every big cigar company would try to pursue some of these people. That's why they keep their
Amazing. It's amazing.
identity quiet.
Yeah.
So, boys, we're about halfway through here on the Vegas Robaina Famosos. This is a really, really nice experience tonight.
I'm gushing inside about this cigar. I think for me, it's getting better and better. It's firmly mild, touching maybe slight medium, but it's so creamy and velvety. And on the retro, I get very faint fruit, but it's so creamy for me. It's outstanding cigar.
Anybody get any pepper, like a slight bit
Not-
of pepper?
not a
towards
drop.
the back.
No, not
Yeah.
a drop.
I think the spice I'm
Some
getting
kind of
is more like a
spice, like a
baking
nutty
spice.
spice, or
Yeah, these guys are sensitive.
It's very, very subtle, though. Very subtle. What are you guys getting?
I'm getting a bit of, actually, I hesitate to say, but coffee. I don't know. It's slightly bitterish with a chocolate flavor, not very mocha-ish, but
maybe
slightly
that's
different.
the spice that I'm thinking about, like a nutty spice. Like, it's like a maybe not a black pepper spice, but more like a
Coffee spice.
like a bitter bit, like a bitter coffee. I don't know. And also, you do get that salty tang.
Oh,
in
that twang is there.
Yeah.
I just like the creaminess in this cigar.
Sure.
This is the one component of it that honestly does remind me a bit of the Clásicos. The Clásicos is a very creamy, velvety cigar. And the ones we've smoked obviously have a lot of age on them. I'm amazed with just 2 years, that same creamy profile that kind of brings this all together is very present here, which is
It's
cool.
got a long finish too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it
that,
just kind of lingers in your mouth.
that's the mark of a very elegant, complex cigar for me.
Especially for something that's mild. Like, it's
Yeah.
surprising that the finish is so long that
Sure.
for a mild cigar, because it's really not punching you in the face.
No, it's a pleasure to smoke, honestly.
And to Pagoda's point, I think that the placement for this in a rotation for me would be earlier in the day with a cup of coffee. I don't think that having this after dinner would serve this cigar. I think this is an early
But-
in the rotation cigar.
If I'm doing a sit for 3 or 4 or 5 cigars, I would start with this.
Yeah, this is the one to start.
No
with.
doubt about it.
I will say, though, I agree with Giz and Pagoda's call out of the coffee note in this. To me, this is the perfect cigar with a cup of coffee.
Oh, sure.
Like, arguably the best pairing of any Cuban cigar with a cup of coffee might be this cigar.
But what you've picked for us to drink tonight is really going beautifully with this thing.
Yeah, let's talk about
It's,
it, boys.
it's really awesome.
The Campo Viejo wine that we discovered at, was it Cha 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 or Cinco Sentidos? Cha Cha Cha. So on the Senator's giving me hand signals, by the way. He's giving me back and forth here. No, not that one, the other one.
He knows sign language too, you know. We learned that from Edie out in the club.
So this wine is a Tempranillo, which we discovered at Cha Cha Cha. And we drank quite a bit of this in Havana because it was a really good value, wine that we were able to pick off a list at multiple places. But it just drinks so well.
Mhm.
And I think is actually pairing very nicely with the cigar.
Agreed.
I think there's a general rule of thumb. When you're traveling somewhere where the wine selection is very limited, which Cuba definitely qualifies as being the case, what you're typically going to find for like a drinkable, a good to decent bottle of wine with dinner that's also going to be very affordable is like Spanish wine, right? Like that's the one thing reliably. They have wine from Spain, Argentina. Very few places have any American wine there. And the ones that do have like literally 2 bottles of something from California. You'll find some from France, but those are going to be a bit higher priced. So just like I said, the value is really, really strong. And then what we're drinking, I mean, this is Campo Viejo. This is ubiquitous. You find this literally everywhere across the U.S., clearly in Cuba, tons of other countries. It's just kind of an easy drinking, red that will pair well with, pretty much anything for a decent meal.
And it's not a Cabernet. What's the grape?
No, so the grape is a Tempranillo. And so
okay.
how Spanish wine works, really all of the old world, like any French wine we've ever done. So in France, the wine is kind of called by the region, whether it's from the Champagne region, we're talking about a Champagne, or obviously some of the red wines from different regions there. the region of this is Rioja, where it's actually grown. So you hear Rioja all the time. It's not a grape. It's just a huge growing region in Spain. And then the actual grape that makes this is the Tempranillo grape.
Interesting. It's delicious. It's really, really easy drinking.
It
Super
is.
easy drinking.
Right?
But very much like the cigar, I feel like
But it's so satisfying.
it's very satisfying, but it's not super rich.
No.
It's a light red wine.
We're going to need another bottle tonight.
We will. We're gonna have to send Senator out to get another one. But
Senator doesn't do delivery.
Oh, Garcon.
But I think actually for the cigar, it's actually a perfect pairing, given that we're drinking a mild cigar. I think having a Merlot or a Cabernet or something a little bit more rich would very much overpower the cigar, and it's not happening tonight with this.
A Cabernet, yes, but a Merlot would work. So I actually would compare this Tempranillo in some ways to a Merlot. It's like a very soft, supple red wine
Interesting.
that like isn't as light as a Pinot Noir, is nowhere near as full as a Cab, and it just kind of sits right in the middle where like the body is just satisfying enough to hold up with most entrees that you might order for a dinner. Also is
A Syrah would be similar, I think.
Or a Zin.
oh no, those
No,
are much
Zins are
heavier.
heavier.
Than that. Yeah,
Yeah.
both are heavier than
I
this.
see. Mhm.
But it's extremely versatile. I think that's a nice thing. Like I said, this is a mild medium cigar, and this holds up really well with this. We've had this with plenty of meals there, and
Yeah.
it can hold up with a piece of chicken, fish. I really, ropa vieja.
Ropa vieja. Which, if a listener listened to the last episode, we became obsessed with the Ropa Vieja at 5 Sentidos in Havana, and we drank this wine every single time we were there eating Ropa Vieja. It paired perfectly. It also paired really well with the fillet tips that we love at Cha Cha Cha. And then it paired very well with fish.
Correct.
Which
Yeah.
Bam also had a few times.
It was
So
excellent.
it's a really, really versatile wine, and especially like you said in Havana, where the wine selection isn't incredible, obviously, but you're able to find something like this that's a good value. And
How much was a bottle?
Well, that's the best part. It's dirt cheap. I mean, a bottle of this at Total Wine is $10 and change.
Wow.
Now,
Bro.
I had to buy this locally at one of our places. They charge 15, which is a ripoff for what this normally.
I have
goes
to
for.
run and get a case of this. This is outstanding for that price.
yeah,
It's
great wine.
outrageous.
So, boys, back to our trip to Pinar del Rio and Viñales. We finished our tour, like we said, at Hector Luis's farm, Quemado de Ruby. Then we went and had a nice meal. We sat down, had some drinks, had a traditional Cuban meal there, which was, I guess, pork with veggies and rice and beans and whatnot. Sat down, had a cigar, and then
Did they serve Paul Roger?
they did not serve Paul Roger.
Jesus.
Cristal.
Senator was furious.
We're in Cuba. My goodness. Paul Rocher.
I must say that it was a bit overpriced.
It was. It was
Well,
one of the more expensive meals, actually.
They need to make a living out there.
It was a
True,
little
but
egregious.
It's a
honestly.
tourist trap too, I guess.
It is.
Yeah.
But overall, it was a great experience. And I think any listener who's going to go to that part of the area and learn about tobacco farming, it's a must to go to that farm and just visit, and you'll have a great experience.
How far is the Robaina farm from there? Do you know?
I don't.
Okay.
It's tough to find these farms. Even on a map, I don't think it
Probably
shows.
not accurate.
And sometimes they go by different names.
Yeah, there's like no street signs out there. I mean, the poor driver just to get us where we were trying to go, it's really not easy to navigate.
Yeah, you really need a driver who's actually been to these farms and who knows where he's going and where to go.
Yeah.
That's the only way, because we were looking for another farm after Jose Luis. I think, what was it, Hoyo de Mena?
Yeah, Hoyo de Mena, but it was closed. We found it, but it was closed.
Right,
couldn't
we
get in
found
there.
it. We couldn't find. Well, first we couldn't find the entrance. Then it was blocked off. We tried to go around the side. The driver stopped multiple times. We really tried to find it. We did find it, but I guess it was closed.
Yeah,
Wow.
wasn't open for business that night. I think it was also because we were there later in the day because we spent quite a bit of time at Hector Luis's place. So, the other thing I'll say too, it was unfortunate we didn't get to have a conversation with Hector Luis because he was doing some business with another table and really was consumed for the entire time we were there with them. So we weren't able to have a full conversation with him. But hopefully the next time we go, we'll be able to do that. So we headed out from Hector Luis's place. We headed back toward Viñales. Like I said, Hector Luis was about 40 minutes outside of the town of Viñales. And on our way back, we wanted to stop at another farm called Juan Luis, which I would say is kind of on the polar opposite as far as preparedness for tourists. And it wasn't quite ready for a busload of people to show up. They had a nice little setup, but
I mean, you're being generous. I'm sorry. It's not a nice setup. That place was a dump. I'm just going to say it. No, I just want to paint the picture.
You
for
are in
listener,
Cuba.
especially. No, but you have to appreciate the contrast of these two places. What shocked me, you go to Hector Luis, it's little things, right? Your expectations are very low in Cuba because resources are obviously so constrained. I'll never forget just using the bathroom at that Hector Luis farm. The bathroom was beautiful. Honestly, it was nicer than most restrooms in restaurants in Havana.
Really?
There was soap and like good hand soap, toilet paper. I mean,
Wow.
I know these are things in the States that we take for granted, but when you're in Cuba, it's a big deal when
It's
you
true.
walk in a public restroom, even at a restaurant that has soap and toilet paper in it, and everything was pristine at Hector Luis. You go to that other place. I mean, I was the first to use that restroom. I mean, it was like an outhouse. It was a totally different setup.
it was definitely in contrast to what we
Wow.
experienced there.
I must say one thing about the bathroom at Hector Luis. It was only one way in. You couldn't get out. There was no handle inside.
That's true.
Yeah, Pagoda got stuck in there for about 10 minutes.
Oh boy.
The one thing that was cool at Juan Luis's farm that Rooster was happy about is they were showing off their honey production. So not
Right.
only do they grow tobacco there, they also have coffee, I believe, as well.
They
But
have
primarily-
coffee. They also make their own rum.
Mm.
They were sampling some rum. When we got there was a bunch of European. There was like a European tour. I forget where they were from. So they were tasting some rum,
Wow.
and I wanted to get a bottle of honey for the house that we were staying at, the Airbnb. And so he had asked me to get this. The honey's apparently like very good there,
Nice.
and it was really super dark, and it was in a plastic Coke bottle.
I was saying to Rooster, I had read right before during our trip, the honey in Cuba is some of the most coveted honey in the world.
Wow.
It's because there's like no pesticides used there. It's like the most organic of types of honey that you can get. Like people legitimately pursue honey from there. And we had it when we were back at the house.
We
It's very
did. It
good.
was
Yes, it
good.
is good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the only place in the world that Monsanto hasn't gotten their hands on yet to deliver truckloads of Roundup. So the bees are able to thrive there, and like I think what you were saying that you've heard from other people around the world that it's very well coveted, right?
Oh, yeah.
Cuban honey. I had no idea that was something that people were chasing, but
Yeah.
apparently it's sought after. So
Well, the funny thing too, it's like all these other products that they're growing and selling at these farms. The reason behind a lot of that was when the Cuban government was screwing these farmers on what they were paying them for the tobacco, the farmers kind of revolted and said, like, we have no way to make money. So they started growing these other crops that were actually paying them more than tobacco was. And then they started getting paid more on the tobacco to kind of, create a stronger incentive to produce more.
Yeah. You know what would be nice? Like these farmers should get together, and when you stop at the rest stop, each person is given a map. So you can get to these farms, and they're nicely labeled, and you can actually visit these farms, and you can buy product from there. I mean, how nice would that be?
And when Rooster starts his farm out there, he'll do that.
Finca Rooster.
Correct.
Done.
So we left Juan Luis, and then we were a little hungry, and we somehow ended up at this restaurant on a hilltop, which provided us with some of the most amazing views
Oh, what a view.
of
Oh.
Cuba that we've ever seen.
Sounds incredible.
So if you think of Havana as kind of a flat city, when you get out to Viñales, Pinar del Rio, that whole area, there's mountains, it's hilly, it's up and down. The terrain is incredible, and to be on a mountaintop staring down into
Amazing.
this valley,
It's amazing.
the views were incredible.
I just have to show Bam this photo. I mean, we
Yeah.
were all taking a bunch of photos. There was one photo that somehow, literally, it looks like a painting. It doesn't
Yeah.
even look real. And this
For-
was on an iPhone.
And for the
Look at
listener,
this.
I cut my trip to Cuba short. I had to get back home, so I didn't get to go out here. This looks like a painting.
It doesn't look real.
It's ridiculous how gorgeous this is. My God. You have to send me that photograph.
I know. Stunning.
Fantastic.
There were some points when we were traveling that it almost looked like, with the way the Jurassic Park opens, like those
Yeah.
those
Very-
scenic views.
yeah.
It's like I was waiting for like a T-Rex to like roar up, or like another dinosaur or something. It kind of had that kind of look to it.
mm.
But it was pretty incredible out there.
So I have to say this cigar is a fake one.
What, the band came off too easily?
The band came off way too easily.
Cut his mic, will you? I love this cigar.
So we had a couple beers and a nice little snack at that restaurant, and then we headed home for 2.5 hours back on those bumpy roads. I don't know if I was ever happier in Cuba than when we finally got back to the highway type setup that they have closer to Havana, where we weren't bouncing around in the vehicle. It was pretty drastic going out there. So any listener who does decide to go to Pinar del Rio Viñales, make sure you get a vehicle that has.
You may need Dramamine.
A 52 Chevy convertible.
No.
The only way. The only way to go.
No way. No way. So, boys, we're into the last third here, I would say, on our Vegas Robaina Famosos. What's everybody thinking?
It's fantastic smoke.
It's delicious. I mean, honestly, I'm pretty far into the last third, and it's just as smooth. No rough edges down the stretch.
Yeah.
The flavor's been consistent all the way through, which I'm happy about because I love the flavor notes that it's delivering.
Still very creamy. Very creamy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Creamy, cedary, cocoa, milk chocolate type.
If you can retrohale, really on the end tail, the end of that retrohale, very faint fruit you got. It's quite nice.
And I think when you get very, very far, when you're well into the final third.
How deep are you? Hold your cigar up. Oh, look at this guy.
Yeah. I mean,
wow.
I'm pretty far along.
You are in there.
And I think at that point, it just hits medium, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I must say, I think it's picked up a little bit, and I think the prominent note for me right now is cedar. I'm definitely getting a lot more cedar, but it's still very pleasurable.
Mm-hmm.
Just touching medium. It's picked up a little bit, but still, very creamy in its delivery, very smooth. Yeah, I'm very happy with the cigar tonight.
And the construction's been great. I mean, I haven't really had to touch this up much at all. The
I don't
burn
think-
line's been consistent.
No one's touched it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, boys, as we wrap up our conversation on Viñales, I think the overall thing that I would say to a listener is definitely go to Viñales and Pinar del Rio and see the source of this incredible thing that we love, and learn about the process as we tried to do, and certainly as we go back more and more, we'll become more educated on it and be able to dive a little deeper as we continue to go. But it's really a strong recommend for me to go out there and visit these folks.
And we also did it in one day.
Yes.
A lot of people who go there, they spend overnight. So maybe that's a way to explore some more farms, because you're going to spend a couple of hours at this one farm that we went to.
Yeah.
So
and a couple hours to get there and go back.
Yeah.
If you're in Havana.
Yeah, and I think for anybody who does make the trip, the one must visit is the Hector Luis farm. You have to go there.
Absolutely.
It's perfectly built for this. I thought the tour was informative. I mean, we had questions. I don't think there was anything that they didn't want to answer or couldn't. And even though the food is a little bit overpriced, I mean, just when you're in Cuba, you don't expect anything to move particularly quickly. And I thought, from the time we got there to the time we got a tour to how long it took to get a drink or food, everything was fast. It's just like a well-oiled machine there. I couldn't recommend it enough.
Yeah, I would probably not eat at Hector Luis's farm. I would eat at Hilltop.
Yeah, go to the place we went at.
Yeah.
Agree.
We didn't really eat. We just got a snack. But that's a legit spot to visit.
And there's clearly, because Viñales is set up as a tourist destination out there, even Senator was commenting as we were driving through as to, even there were street, on the side of the street, you could buy Doritos or a can of Coca-Cola, which in Havana is very, very hard to come by. So it's almost like as we got further away, 2.5 hours from Havana, it's almost like there were more of those kind of American snacks and kind of grabby food.
Yeah, this is just for Puba.
Did they have Doritos?
We actually ate Pringles.
We had Pringles.
We had Pringles.
And
he's all set.
And we were walking down some street in Havana one night. Obispo, and I have a photo of it. We spotted, I think Giz spotted it first, this little bodega that literally had bags of Doritos for sale.
Wow.
I took it just to show Puba.
He's all set.
No more excuses.
No more.
So, boys, I got to say, we just talked about the cigar a little bit, but the wine has really been a really smooth drinking experience with the cigar. And the reason why I say that, and I'm kind of, it's imprinting on my brain, is we didn't have many experiences where we were drinking wine with cigars in Havana.
That's exactly right.
Because at most of these restaurants we ate at, we weren't smoking cigars while we were eating. So when we left the restaurant, we went to a lounge or we went back to our house or whatever it was.
And we'd have rum. Yeah.
You're drinking rum.
This is a wonderful combination tonight.
So this is a nice revelation,
Mm.
despite how much we've had it, is that it is pairing really well with the cigar.
Sure.
So, boys, yeah, Viñales was great, man. We got to
It's
go back
awesome.
out there sometime. And like I said, for the listeners, you definitely have to go visit, where this thing comes from.
I can't wait to see it firsthand.
Yeah, it was a bit cloudy that day.
Mm.
It'd
It
be
was.
nice to see if it was sunny. Like,
But the
you could
photographs are
probably-
still stunning.
Oh yeah,
Stunning.
yeah, great view.
Yeah.
So, boys, we have to talk about it because it's coming up pretty much about a week from now, week and a half. The Habanos Festival 2024 starts on the 26th of February.
All right.
So let's talk about some of the things they're highlighting this year because we haven't discussed this. So it's a week-long program. I went to it last year. I went to the Wednesday event and the Friday gala dinner where they debuted the Partagas Linea Maestra, which hopefully is going to be coming out this year around festival time. We'll see.
Is it earlier this year?
No, it's about the same week. Yeah, it's the same week. Last week of February into March. So it starts on the 26th of February and opens with the welcome event, which is celebrating this year the 30th anniversary of Habanos. So that's really exciting.
Boo. More price increases. Yay. I mean,
Yeah, more.
what's there to celebrate? I'm sorry. Give me a break.
So Wednesday night,
He's not wrong.
He's 100% right. He's 100% right. And I believe there's some more price increases coming. We'll talk about that on a future episode. I'm going to get some info on that. Wednesday, the 28th. This one's cool. They're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Kai Dorsey.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
So that'll be nice. Get some good cigars there. I don't think they're announcing anything, but we'll see. And then the Friday gala dinner is celebrating the 55th anniversary of Trinidad.
Wow.
So that's going to be something special. I'm sure they're going to release a 55th anniversary cigar from Trinidad this year
for $300.
for $300, I'm sure. But that is that's kind of the lineup this year of what they're celebrating at the Habanos Festival. So we won't be there, but some of our friends will. So we'll get a report and we'll kind of report back on what's announced and what's released and see if there's any surprises in store. So, boys, we're coming to the end of our evening here with the Vegas Robaina Famosos and the Campo Viejo wine. Any final thoughts before we move into our ratings tonight?
Nope.
I'm actually pleasantly surprised by how good this is.
The cigar?
Yeah,
Who's had this cigar before tonight?
I have not.
Never,
Really?
ever had
Not
this
me.
before.
I have
Okay.
not had this.
I've had one. And what's funny is the one I had was actually much fuller in flavor than this cigar is. It was, I would say, firmly medium. It was just very different. And maybe it was younger and with more youth, it has, a little more oomph to it for the cigar. I don't remember it being as creamy as this. I didn't love it. It was kind of like, honestly, what it reminded me of, if you've had a young Unicos, I don't think young that cigar smokes that great.
I agree.
And that's kind of my experience with the Famosa when it was young. But just 2 years, I would definitely smoke this again.
This is a 2022, right?
Yeah, mid-22, yeah.
Mid-22.
It's incredible. I'm comfortable in saying that this is probably the very best mild cigar that I've ever had. I haven't had many that are memorable. I don't ever remember a mild cigar that I liked. This is going to leave a mark, and I would like to get more. The best mild cigar I've ever had.
I think that's an interesting point, Ben, because anytime I think about a mild cigar I've had, it's never really been memorable.
No.
Maybe aside from the Padron Damaso series, which is kind of their mild line with the
Maybe.
Connecticut wrapper on it. That's a great cigar. I've not reached for it again just because it's not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But this is a cigar, like I said, I could very well see this being a Saturday morning with a cup of coffee type of cigar for me. But, as far as where it's going to land in the rest of my rotation, it's only going to be at the beginning because
Sure.
pretty much everything else we smoke from the
Sure.
Habanos catalog or outside of Cuba is going to be a lot more full than this.
But what a great start to a sit if you're going to spend time at the club. It's a
Absolutely. right.
fantastic start.
What did you say the price point is on this?
It's about 18 or 20 bucks when I bought it. So it's probably about 22 now. 20, 22.
Yeah, it's expensive at 22. At 18 to 20, it's amazing.
There's nothing cheaper.
I know.
Even when we were there, a D4 in Cuba is about 16.
Yeah, so here it's about
$16.
20.
So here it's exactly
22.
20, 22.
I know that's the only thing that's hard for me is just like
Compare it when
the size,
this is true.
which is larger, right? Same length but bigger ring gauge, and it delivers a lot more flavor and to me more versatility. I mean, I have a D4 in the morning as often as I would in the evening, and so that's going to factor in a little bit for me here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, boys, let's move into the formal liquor rating of the Campo Viejo wine we had. Bam Bam, you're up.
For under $11, the way it's drinking, how can I not give this a 10?
Ooh, wow, Bam.
It's a 10 for
Wow.
me because I can go through an entire bottle, open a second, and continue to enjoy it. It's delicious. It drinks so easy, and the versatility with food is amazing. 10.
Okay, Pagoda.
I'll give it a 9. I think it's I'm not really into wine, so I've had few wines which I've really, really enjoyed. And those wines I know are a 10 for me inside, like in my head. This does not measure up to that, I think, but I'm really enjoying it. It's very light bodied. It feels very easy to drink. And the price point is fantastic. It's a 9.
Senator.
This is tough because I'm between an 8 and a 9. For what it is, it's an 8, but for what it is at its price point, I'm going to round up to a 9. I mean, it's extraordinarily difficult to find a $10 bottle of wine that is even drinkable.
Exactly right.
And the fact that, you can drink this on its own, you can have this with a meal, and you're going to be satisfied enough every time. That's a huge merit. So I'm going to round up to a 9. And I think for anyone who's in a bind as far as wine selection goes,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be satisfied getting this. And for anybody else who is just looking for like a really budget accessible wine that's
Yeah.
going to deliver enough, I mean, this would be it.
Most people pursue blends at this price point because they don't have other options. This is a pure grape. It's really something.
So I was coming into this episode almost anticipating that I was going to give this wine an 8, simply because I hadn't had it with the cigars, I noted. And also, it's very good. Obviously, it's the selection we make in Cuba. The wine list is limited versus other wines that I reach for that I would consider a 9 or a 10, or we've rated 9s or 10s. It's one step below that. But given how it performed for being a $10 bottle of wine with the cigar tonight, which was a bit of a surprise to me, it's a 9 for me for sure.
Great rating.
So it's a little bit more than I expected with the cigar tonight. So I'm happy about that. So, boys, that puts the formal liquor rating at a 9.3,
Wow.
which is a very good rating for a $10 bottle of wine. Now, let me ask you a question. If this bottle was $30, would you guys feel the same way about it?
My rating would probably drop very slightly to a 9.
I think value is playing into that
I
rating.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Is.
It's
I mean,
compelling.
for me, it definitely is. I mean, I'd give this a 7 if this were $30. I maybe even a 6. Look, the thing is,
The discerning silver tongue.
I mean, look, the thing with this wine, it's a very simple, straightforward wine. You have not one of us used the word complex to describe it,
No,
and it's
yeah.
not by design. It's meant to just hit the right notes that most people like, which are like dark berries, not overly sweet, a little bit of vanilla, and it works really well for most occasions. But at a $30 price point, I mean, there's no way I'm going to give this a 9.
Yeah.
But I think like we're all saying, the value is so tremendous on this bottle
And the
that
versatility.
it's deserving of anyone who's looking for a budget wine. Pick it up and try it. And if you're, with a limited selection, you're going to be satisfied enough with this.
All right, boys, it's time to move into the formal lizard rating on the Vegas Robaina Famosos tonight. Rooster, you're up.
Yeah, so I would love a box of these.
Yeah, same.
I think I can smoke this in the morning, in the afternoon, early evening, as a first cigar in the evening, and then move on to something a little bit bolder. So, I mean, I know you said, Bam, it's medium. I mean, it's mild.
Mild, yeah.
Mild.
Mhm.
To me, it's like a little bit more than mild. It's a little bit
Touch
more
is
like
medium.
in between a mild and a medium.
Mhm.
And towards the end, it did pick up. It did become a medium
In a nicely
in a nice way,
smooth way. Yeah.
I mean, the notes that I threw out, I got out of this was a lot of cedar and coffee, and I mean, I love those notes. So for me, this is a 9.
Senator.
I'm in the exact same camp. I came in with little to low expectations. I mean, like I said, I had one before. It wasn't anything special to me. The flavor notes were, like Rooster said, I think notes that I and many of us, if not all of us, really pursue in a cigar. And it was consistent all the way through. I never lost flavor at any point, which we know happens all too often with a lot of sticks. The construction was perfect on mine from the draw to the burn. Yeah, it's really hard to find a complaint. I mean, the reason for me it's not a 10 is it doesn't deliver as much flavor as I would like. I mean, with this profile, if this had a more robust flavor profile, I mean, it'd be a 10
Yeah.
easily for me. But for
If
what it is,
if it maintained its smoothness and creaminess.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But for what it is, and I'm glad you reminded me. I mean, the creaminess of this cigar with just under 2 years of age really is it's pretty impressive. So I'm at a firm 9.
So for me, it's an 8, and I'll tell you 2 reasons why. Number one, the last quarter, I would say, where it went full cedar, I did not really enjoy it. It got a little bitter for me in a way that I didn't love it.
Mhm.
And I think also the value at 18 or 20 or $22, whatever this might end up being when you can get it in the United States, it doesn't line up for me at that price point. So I don't see myself reaching for it like I want to, even in the morning with a cup of coffee. I also I have so many other cigars in my humidor, a few other Hermosos number 4s in my humidor, same exact size that I might reach for over this.
Which
Connie-
ones? I'm just curious.
The Connoisseur 1 and the El Rey del Mundo Schwa Supreme, I would reach
Oh.
for both of those
Well,
over this
they're
cigar.
different cigars. We mentioned that earlier. Correct. You're right.
Sure,
You're
but,
right.
But both of those cigars I would reach for over this. So I just don't know if it's going to break into my rotation. I appreciated the creaminess. I appreciated the mild flavor profile. I think if it had a little bit more for me and that last quarter was a little bit more solid in line with the first half of the cigar, it would have been a 9. So it's an 8 for me all day.
I have to say, I'm shocked.
Me too.
For Rooster, who loves a very full cigar, to give that a 9 and you give it 8, I would have never guessed that.
The guy has a 90th for breakfast,
Right.
for crying out loud.
And he said he
Padron.
smoked this anytime.
It's not nice, Giz.
Pagoda.
It's a 9 for me. I really liked, the cocoa milk chocolate flavor in the beginning. I felt a little bit of the coffee taste right after that. It's been very consistent. The draw has been a bit tight, to be fair, and maybe that's why the score is a bit lower. But overall, a very, very pleasant experience for me. And I didn't think this was mild to any effect. I thought it was closer to a medium-bodied cigar, which kind of picked up a little strength towards the back, and an excellent experience tonight. Yeah, it's a 9 for me.
Bam, bam.
Yeah, I'm also at a 9. I can't see giving this an 8 because it's so memorable for me. I'll remember the cigar. I would like a box of it. You know, like I said earlier, for me, it's really the best mild cigar I've ever had. It did pick up, Senator, as you noted, toward the tail end of it. But for me, I like that cedar note. No pepper at all. Very smooth.
I would pick this over a Connie 1.
Me too.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, sorry. You're right.
I
All
would.
right. We're going to have Danilo put Giz through the tasting
Yeah.
practice.
No, he's got to go through the gauntlet, okay?
So, boys, the formal lizard rating on the Vegas Robaina Famosos is an 8.8, which
Wow.
I think is
That's
a fair
great,
score.
That's a nice
It's a
score.
fair score.
good
Yeah.
I think it's a
could
fair
have-
score
it
for this.
could have been a 9.
It's a nice score. But what's interesting, if there are guys and gals out there that love a mild cigar, this is a little home run cigar here at that flavor profile.
I agree.
And again, the fact that this cigar satisfied Rooster and Pagoda, who
Yeah.
loves a full flavored cigar,
Oh yeah,
I think speaks to the versatility or range that this has to really satisfy anybody.
correct.
I mean, you followed this cigar with a New World, like an Exclusivo or any other Padron. I mean, it's a great night.
it'll
a great night,
enhance
It
your
will
your
enhance your
experience on that
experience.
second cigar.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I also think the finish was reasonably long, and my mouth is very pleasantly
Yeah.
filled with really good,
There's a nice coating there.
There's a nice
Yeah.
coating,
Yeah.
and so for me that's why definitely a 9.
All right, boys. So let's compare this to other Vegas Robaina we've done on the pod. Like I said, this is the third one we've done. We did the, of course, classic 2011 Classico on New Year's Eve 2022.
The Holy
which
Grail.
got a 9.9. I think Pagoda gave that a 9 that night. That was a
Pagoda.
Oh,
my
you gotta
goodness.
take him out back.
you see how my flavor profile has developed over the years.
I think he needs another one to try.
And on episode 38, we did the Unicos, the Pyramid, which got an 8.2. So this scored 6 points better than that. And let's also compare to the other Hermosos number 4s that we've done. We did the El Rey del Mundo Schwa Supreme on episode 22, scored a 7.8, which is quite low.
That's quite disappointing.
That's
I think
quite
we need
low.
to do that again.
The Upman, H. Upman Connoisseur number 1 on episode 96 got an 8.6, just a touch below this. On episode 52 with Dan Strashini, on the big counterfeit episode with those Cohibas I got, we did the St. Louis Rey Regios. That got an 8.8, which is in line with this.
That was a good cigar.
And finally, the Rafael Gonzalez Coronas de Lonsdales we did on episode 105 got a flat 8.0.
So the ratings say this is
Better.
One
the
of the better
best.
ones. It's
in
in
its
line with the
format.
St. Louis Rey Regios,
Yeah.
8.8.
But the Schwa score, that's a disappointment.
I think the Regios was a little bit older.
I think there was age on that. I think
Age
it was a
on that.
2016.
So having said that, I mean, this is a 22.
Yeah.
And if you compare the box, I mean, if you have it about the same age, this could be a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
I'm
has
going to say
potential.
I'm not as surprised on the Schwa rating. The reason I say that, I've had some amazing Schwa Supreme, and I've had some that are just okay.
I don't know.
Yeah,
For
That
me,
means-
they're not all that consistent.
I haven't had that experience. For me, the consistency's been there with every Schwa. I've
you
ever had.
you love this.
And I do love that cigar. Yeah. I'm biased.
Well,
Gotcha.
remember, he didn't have the Schwa. That was the
Yeah.
one box he didn't have before. Now,
No.
now
we're
his power's complete.
now we're
He's got
busting
the
at the
Schwa
seams.
Supreme.
Now he has the Opus Dubai.
Are we really going to go there?
Opus Dubai.
You have to say it twice?
It will
Say
be
it again, will you?
The Opus Dubai. Dan has a whole box of those. We will be doing it on the pod very soon.
Yes.
Well, what
coming up
choice do I
soon.
have now? It's being imprinted in a recording. I got to do it now.
Wait, Rooster, what
Line
cigar?
it up. The Opus Dubai.
He's the brand.
Bam's got a whole box of those.
You motherfucker.
How much are they, by the way?
A lot.
How much is a lot,
I
Bam?
paid, I'm embarrassed to say how much I paid. I can't. It's too much.
No,
Say
no,
it.
please
Say it.
tell us.
Say it.
That box cost me $1,900.
Hello.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Rooster's been waiting all week for this.
$1,900.
I know.
We could have
Jeez.
smoked 5 of these each.
He never told us he had them. He never told us where he got them from.
I showed you.
I want to. You showed me. No, you
showed
didn't. You
you.
didn't show me. You were smoking.
I
it.
lit it in front of you.
You were okay.
I
you were,
lit it in
you were
front of you.
smoking it, and I'm like, "What are you smoking with like 50 bands on?" He goes, "This is it's an Opus." I'm like, "Opus? I've never seen this Opus." Like, "Oh, it's an Opus Dubai." I'm like, "Opus Dubai." When did you get this?
I like to drop an occasional bomb in the club. What can I say?
That was more like a nitrogen bomb.
Bam, it sounds like you're like the brand ambassador now for Opus Dubai with how much
yeah.
that was said on the podcast tonight.
Okay.
Oh, man.
And by the way, no splitwise on that. All right?
I like that app. Oh, yeah.
All right, boys. A great night on the Campo Viejo Tempranillo wine. We had a formal liquor rating of a 9.3. And on the Vegas Robaina Famosos, we ended up at an 8.8.
It's a good night.
Two very respectable scores. Strong recommends on both. And guys, it was a wonderful trip to Viñales, Pinar del Rio. I can't wait to go back. And for any listener who didn't tune in, 2 weeks ago, we did our Havana recap. First time back in a little under a year to Havana. We talked about our restaurant, lounge recommendations. We talked about the impacts of inflation. We talked about Rooster celebrating his birthday at Tropicana, among a bunch of other stuff. So check that out. And in 2 weeks, we're going to conclude our wrap-up of our Havana trip for the early part of 2024 with our interview with Danilo Rodriguez, the production manager of Cohiba and El Laguito, where we smoked the Hike 54s out of his humidor, which was a wonderful conversation and a wonderful night. So in 2 weeks from today, tune into that and check it out. All right, boys, a great night. Great pairing tonight. Awesome. And we'll see everybody next week. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for joining us. You can find our merch store and ratings archive at our brand new website, loungelizardspod.com. That's loungelizardspod.com. Don't forget to leave us a rating and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any comments, questions, if you want to reach out, say hello, tell us what you're smoking, email us, hello@loungelizardspod.com. You can also find us on Instagram @loungelizardspod. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.